So here to moderate our panel on case studies in content marketing is Veronica Simmonds. Veronica is the publicist at Coach House Books. She's the one in the middle here. She creates and implements imaginative publicity and marketing plans for each of their 16 to 18 titles per year and supports a backlist of nearly 300 books, all on a shoestring. Please welcome Veronica.
It's my honor to introduce Sarah MacLachlan. Sarah has been working in publishing for over 30 years now. She began her career in 1986, running the publicity department for Oxford University Press in Toronto. In December 2003, she was hired by Scott Griffin to become the president of the literary publisher House of Anansi Press. In 2005, Anansi acquired the children's publisher Groundwood Books, and Sarah oversees both companies. And in 2010, publisher of Anansi was added to her title.
Anansi was founded in 1967 by two young writers, David Godfrey and Dennis Lee of the Alligator Pie fame. They stumbled into publishing in a kind of nationalistic fervor. Remember, 1967 was the 100th anniversary of Confederation. It was the centennial year. And David was really dismayed that he couldn't find more Canadian books on the shelves of the U of T book room in particular. They were both at U of T. And he met Dennis. He thought he was brilliant. He knew he was a great poet. And he insisted that they somehow bring to publication Dennis's first collection called The Kingdom of Absence. And so in that way, and those of you who are old enough to remember this reference of Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, when they get together in those musicals from the 30s and 40s and say, let's put on a play, My Dad Has a Barn, away these two went, and they founded House of Anansi in order to publish this particular book, Kingdom of Absence. And I just tell you that by way of reference that we've always had a kind of maverick sensibility about us, and that in 2017 we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. I think it was Jack McClelland who didn't expect us to last more than 6 months. So never mind survive, we are actually thriving. And today, Anansi publishes a diverse set of books across a number of genres and imprints. I'm putting them all up here so you can see them. Spiderline is our crime imprint. Arachnid is our imprint for French-Canadian literature and translation, which is something we've always done, but we wanted to give it a kind of home. Astoria is our short fiction imprint. Anansi International is our imprint for titles that we bring in from around the world. We have the Anansi Poetry List. We have the A List, which is our Canadian Classics reprint list, and Anansi Digital for the books that we decide to just publish as ebooks. And Anansi also houses our sister company, which is Groundwood Books, which is a children's book publisher, which was founded by Patsy Aldana, which we acquired from Douglas and McIntyre in 2005, and Sheila Berry has been the publisher of this list since 2012. We employ 30 people, 10 of whom make up the sales, marketing, and publicity team that works across all of these imprints, both adult and kids, and encompasses both traditional and digital content marketing. That said, we have 2 people who work exclusively on the digital side. That's Carolyn McNeely, and she's the digital marketing manager, and Neil Wadjwa, who works along with her, and with the aid of an intern, they get it all out there. Now, as I said, Carolyn is on maternity leave, so Neil has had the Herculean task of putting everything out there with some aid from various interns who've come and gone. In this presentation, I'm going to show you a few examples of campaigns we've run, some of which we've given away content, others in which we've created new digital content, and in others where we've pushed learning resources. These endeavors done in an effort to get followers to ultimately buy our books, because that is the end result of marketing purchasing. And I'll look at how we work in complementary yet different ways across the adult and children's lists. We have a few tenets at House of Anansi and Groundwood that drive our year-round content marketing strategies and our digital marketing strategies as a whole. We focus on the strengths, the books that seem to really be driving sales and interest, both online and in the marketplace. We are conversational in all our social networks. We're chatting with the people who are following us as much as possible. We're agile. If something happens in the world that will affect, we think, people's interest in a book, we make sure we get behind it and tell people about it. And we very much try to understand how our audience uses our content. The fourth point is important because Groundwood audience is an entirely different audience and interacts completely differently with us than the Anansi audience. So let's talk about the Anansi list first. As you've seen, we have a number of different imprints which act as an organizational tool when trying to understand the breadth of what we publish. We're a general interest literary publisher, and to that end, we use our imprints to give a delineation to our list, and in some cases even deliver us a specific reading audience who we can market directly to. Broadly speaking, when we're looking to promote our content through our different social networks, we try to find themes or celebration days or months in the calendar where we can promote specific titles. February is Black History Month, March is International Women's Month, April is Poetry Month, and so it goes. To this end, we aren't any different from any of you who are looking to generate interest and ultimately sales for your books. This is our baseline strategy, a calendar. When it comes to online promotion, and then when we look in between the gaps, we look for opportunities to present themselves for certain of our titles where we hope to build greater interest, awareness, and ultimately sales. Anansi's audience is mostly people buying books for themselves or friends. So what we're trying to do is get the book into the reader's hands in the easiest way possible. And again, we do this by highlighting select days of the year to build our content strategy. And then we determine which of the best social media channels to reach our prime customers are the ones who will buy. So I'm going to focus right now on a Spiderline group of books by Ian Hamilton called the Ava Lee series. For fans of Ian Hamilton's Ava Lee, we cater directly to them. We segment them completely from the noise of everything else that Anansi has to offer outside our crime fiction imprint Spiderline. Our content strategy for fans of Ava Lee is to focus on two key dates: the launch of the book, which is usually sometime in January, and the Chinese New Year, which is usually sometime in February. While we do promote the books before, during, and after those days, it's on those 2 days that we do something bigger with our content, something really innovative. We send out emails. Fans of crime fiction are passionate about crime fiction, and the Ava Lee series, we found that the audience is extremely responsive and are keen to engage directly with the author. Here is an example of Ian's Facebook page, the author. He himself has often solicited advice from his fans and followers, characters' names, plot points. He's developed quite an interactive persona through Facebook, and as a result, quite a dedicated fan base. We communicate directly with his fan base via email. In 2013, we offered a targeted email campaign, a free Ava Lee ebook, which was a prequel to the series called The Dragonhead of Hong Kong, that we sent out serially, 1 chapter a week, over the period of a month to people who had signed up for the Spiderline mailing list, a grand total of 713 people. But what's quite compelling about that number is that the open rate was almost 80%, and the click rate was 65%, and the ebook was downloaded 630 times. And some people forwarded that link to people that weren't on the mailing list. The open rate and click rate are much higher than the average engagement rate of our list, of any of our lists, and our general Anansi update email list that we send out. The next year, we did something around Chinese New Year, a little less generous, but yeah, no, it was still generous. We offered a 50% discount on all books on the Ava Lee list for a period of 24 hours. The open rate for this email blast was 67.4% and resulted in $584 worth of sales in a 24-hour period. We didn't promote the sale anywhere outside of our e-blast. Our content was just one email to the smallest Anansi mailing list. Once we had done this targeted communication to the avid Ava fans, our focus shifts to promoting author and book events, while content marketing surrounding the book turns to sharing whatever news and reviews over the social media. Lastly, one of the reasons why we're so focused on grouping audiences together and using imprints to do so, Spiderline in this case has a kind of trickle-down, there's a kind of trickle-down effect that the content creates in terms of sales. If you're an Ava Lee fan, then chances are you're a crime fiction fan in general, and vice versa. When we use the Spiderline list to promote one book or one series, we always see an uptick in sales for other books and other series in the Spiderline collection. So here you see an order for 3 different authors, but they're each representative of books in 3 different series. And then the other sort of aspect of this is that we look to the selling one single Ava Lee title, which will then provoke buyers to come back and buy the rest of the series. It's kind of interesting to watch the buying activity around this, and they do it in EPUB and they do it in paperback. They are a really, really dedicated purchasing group. So before we move to Groundwood, I just want to talk about one other thing that has been enormously successful for us in terms of marketing and the way it's impacted sales. And that's History's People, the 2015 CBC Massey Lecture. Anansi has been a partner with the CBC and Massey College for decades, and the books on the Massey Lectures are a cornerstone of our publishing program. While we don't have a dedicated imprint for the Masseys, they do act as a category unto themselves. And the publication each year of a new Massey Lecture is a big deal, and the rollout of that book takes place over a period of 3 months. We begin with the book launch and continue on to a cross-country tour with the author to 5 different cities where he or she delivers a live talk linked to each one of the 5 chapters in the book. The marketing push culminates in the broadcast of the tapes of these live lectures on CBC Radio 1 Ideas in the month of November. In the case of History's People, our content strategy was to push the broadcast, which ran the week of November the 2nd. Based on years of experience, we knew that people who listened and liked the talks on CBC Radio would also be interested in reading the full book and inevitably would be interested in other Massey Lecture titles. We teamed up with Pulp Studios, headed by Kelly Mellings in Edmonton, who had been the illustrator for a graphic novel we did last year called The Outside Circle, which was a bestseller for us. He created a series of 5 30-second video clips to promote the Massey Lectures talks on the radio. We posted 1 clip a day on Facebook and Twitter, and each clip was related to what that evening's lecture on CBC Radio would be about. We were able to do this thanks to the support of the OMDC Book Marketing Fund, and CBC Radio also used these videos on their social accounts. We found that this content strategy was very effective. We had Margaret McMillan sign copies of History's People for us and saw things like this, where one consumer came and bought 7 copies in one fell swoop, or like this other slide, which shows that they bought the book plus backlist. And this played itself out until our final day of the promotion, which was a 24-hour, 50% off sale for all of the Massey Lectures. You could buy all of them for 50 off. And that resulted in sales of 44 copies sold and $1,500 worth of sales through our website in just a 24-hour period. Again, our content strategy was to raise awareness and in order to sell the books. For those of you who are interested, these lectures are being rebroadcast right now. The final lecture will be on this evening, and we just finished rerunning that 50% off sale, and the results were even better than the first time we did it in the past 6 months. So we focus on select books and days and events to get behind in order to drive our content strategy. This isn't to say that we neglect the other titles in the interim. We're always pushing and promoting our books and authors, but with a small team at Anansi and knowing the audience's buying habits, we make a conscious decision to hone in on what we expect to be popular and give it an extra content push. I would say that the matrix that we use to measure our success is not in the number of likes or views or even shares we get, but in the number of books we sell and the dollar amount we generate. In the past year, after having rebuilt our site, worked with Shopify on the back end, and increased our marketing pushes through social media, we've seen an increase in traffic and sales, which I'm showing you here. But the important percentage when I look at it is that our sales for 2015 from our website were up over 40% over 2014. So what I'm trying to say here is we use our direct sales, we use our website as a form of measurement in terms of what is the success of our marketing. Now let's look at the children's book publisher, Groundwood, who have a slightly different set of matrix. Groundwood books are created for kids 0 to 18, but are purchased by parents, grandparents, teachers, librarians, in other words, adults. And so we have to create books for kids, but market to the adults. And so it takes more convincing on our part to get them to buy. We produce more support content for Groundwood as compared to Anansi, and the content is very informational. The Groundwood audience as a whole engages more actively with the extra content we produce around the books. They're much more likely to read a blog post, share a blog post, like, comment on Facebook posts, open emails, and click through them, and more. They're passionate about the Groundwood brand and its authors and illustrators because of the influence these books might have on their kids or their students. They're not looking for any book, they're looking for the right specific book, and that's why the informational content Groundwood produces is so important. It also means Groundwood's audience is less likely to know what they want before they come to our site. Again, they're buying for other people, so they need content to help inform their decisions around purchasing. The content strategy for Groundwood can be summarized as follows. We inform and hope through providing the information to the Groundwood audience that we will lead them to buy. Just to give you some idea of the disparity between the adult book purchaser and the kids book purchaser on our site, Anansi book sales represent about 65% of total sales, while Groundwood makes up the remaining 35%. With Groundwood, we often turn to the authors and illustrators themselves to speak. We found that with the Groundwood audience, there's also a deep-rooted interest in knowing who wrote or illustrated the book. And as a result, Groundwood's content doesn't necessarily need to be specifically about a book itself, but about the interests of that author or illustrator. Two of our most popular blog posts of 2015 were from best-selling author Marie-Louise Gay on the essential role of school librarians, and from Groundwood's publisher Sheila Berry on publishing children's books that matter. Neither post speaks directly to one particular book, but rather they speak on topics that are unique to children's publishing and provide insight into the people behind Groundwood, things that parents, librarians, and teachers want to know about. The post by Marie-Louise Gay went up on July 6th in 2015, and as of February 2nd, 2016, it's the second most popular page, not just the most popular post, but page on Groundwood's website. That said, it's not lost on us that we picked Groundwood's most popular and best-selling author to feature here. In other words, we got behind something that we knew was already working and pushed it that much harder. It's important that we put reviews front and center. Parents and institutional buyers see reviews from reputable sites because, again, they're not buying the books for themselves. They depend on recommendations and the reviews of others. It can't just be us saying, hey, look, this is a good book, you should buy it, to help with their buying decisions. We provide resources for teachers, librarians, parents, and even kids for free. We make resources in-house, tailor them for both the US and the Canadian curricula. They're free, they can be accessed on our website. They range from educator guides, which all follow a set template for easy use for teachers or for fun activities for kids. Some resources are 3 pages long, others are 33 pages long, depending on the book and the type of resource. Some resources have nothing to do with any books, but they're just fun activities for a kid. And this is all done with the help from our authors and illustrators. So our content strategy with Groundwood is to continuously inform teachers, librarians, inform parents, the works. But we do market specific books and recognize that when a book is showing signs of taking off, we will put extra marketing resources behind it. An example of this is the Gigi Award-winning children's picture book, Sidewalk Flowers, which we have promoted through 16 and well into this year as well. Sidewalk Flowers was the most popular book published by Groundwood in 2015. Taking what we discussed in the previous slides, here's what our content strategy at Groundwood looked like for this book. To kick off its publication, we had 2 posts, one from John Honor Lawson, who was the author, and I know it seems funny that a wordless picture book should have an author, but it does. It was his concept. And Sydney Smith, the illustrator. These were posted in the 2 weeks leading into the book's release. Arno Lawson's Love Letter to Toronto is the second most popular page on our site after Marie-Louise Gay. Since February, we've posted 5 additional blog posts that are directly related to Sidewalk Flowers being in the news for awards and honors, year-round social push, and content review resources and news. That's a note to myself. Our social push for Sidewalk Flowers has been constant. A week hasn't gone by that we don't discuss this book on Twitter or on Facebook, in addition to our constant push on the other social networks. Our 2 most popular Facebook posts of 2015 were about Sidewalk Flowers, one which has organically reached over 11,000 people, and the other with slightly over 7,300. The posts, as usual, aren't about the books themselves, but in this case, about a program we're running with IBI Canada, in which we'll be providing a copy of Sidewalk Flowers to Syrian refugees entering the country. We also run contests. Who doesn't run contests? But they work. They build email lists. So for this one, we did a free book and sidewalk chalk and a poster, and we had over 127 entries, and it ran over 5 days, and it was fabulous. So I'm going to wrap up because I saw my number down there. I just put it this way. Here are my 5 points for what you do to make successful marketing content strategy. Plan your content and how your audience needs to use that content. Publish and promote your content on a schedule that is optimized for reaching your audience when they are reaching for information, news, or entertainment. That means being agile and watching for opportunities to draw people to your site. Be worthy of the click. Consider what types of content are most useful to your audience. In social media, content is the conversation starter. On the website, it's the problem solver. In other words, the purchase. Focus on the strengths of your relationships with your audience and with your staff and external collaborators like booksellers and reviewers. Engaging with those advocates fuels content. The reviews, blog posts, social media contributions, likes, comments, and shares that drive discoverability and sales. And lastly, a content strategy should not be a chore. It's an opportunity to be creative and have fun. That's it.
Or how you respond to, say, a campaign that isn't resulting in the sales that you want. So you've got the timing and the content and everything appears to be on, but the end result isn't there.
We just chalk it up to some fun. I mean, honestly, I was just showing you, I was trying to make the point about campaigns that we have run that have resulted in what everybody wants when you run a marketing campaign, which is to see sales.
Right.
And we have run many, and continue to run many campaigns that are done largely for our own creative ends, and to start conversations. You know, we did, we were talking about it I was talking about it with Neil earlier. We did a free little library campaign last year where I mean, it took us forever. We did videos all over town. We were all so into it, and we were pushing it out, and we were trying to make the video be watched by as many millions of people as we could, and the end result was nothing.
Right.
But we had a very good time. And I mean, I think that's the other part. We work in an industry where you're not highly remunerated. You do it because you love books. And you should never, and in the independent publishing category, we have, I think, more possibilities to have a good time and have fun and experiment with things. And who knows, maybe one time, and it has happened to us, we'll do a campaign that, oh boy, it really did take off. So I probably should have said, yes, experiment the hell out of all kinds of things. But it is also fun to see how doing something can result in, like last night we did this Massey sale, and my Shopify app was like ka-chinging through you know, David Gilmour's concert that I was at, you know, and money was up on the screen, and my app was making money. So it was all kind of fun.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question, and if this is totally not kosher to answer, then that's fine.
Be not fearful.
I'm going to try. So I'm really investigating incorporating Shopify into our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've always wondered, because I'm a constant subscriber of Anansi's newsletters, is have you ever had any guff or any kind of hesitancy from retailers for selling your books for 50% off?
So here's the thing. Anansi has been selling direct to consumers since, you know, Jesus wore short pants. It was like when I got to Anansi in 2003, we'd already been doing it, I think, for 3 or 4 years. My mind drops numbers all the time. And those days, when there was a very strong Canadian Booksellers Association, we would have to go out to lunch with bookstores and get into fights to defend ourselves. As the independents have dropped off, we get less and less guff for it. And honestly, nobody gives us a hard time now. And I think one of the things is that, you know, while I'm trumpeting the sales on our website, they aren't going to put anybody out of business. And they're not actually going to keep us in business. And they are also satisfying customers who are in far-flung places where they are not served by bookstores in many instances. So from my perspective, and you've already heard I've been in publishing for a really long time, and I remember being at Little Brown when we had a book called The Cat Who Came for Christmas, and nobody could get it because we'd only brought in 1,000 copies. And people would phone up and say, can I just come and buy it from you? And I kept thinking to myself, well, why can't you just come and buy it from me? So, long answer, but we just keep doing it, and we are not hassled about it.
I'm just wondering, I know that you're tracking success through sales.
But if, say, that wasn't, if direct sales weren't an option, I'm wondering how you're tracking your success and if there are any like data management tracking devices that you're using. Anything like that would be interesting.
I would probably have to default to ask Neil if there's any data management tracking that we're using. But I mean, we are interested in the number of shares. I'm not saying that isn't of interest to us. We are, and when something goes viral, like I did a blog post the other day, and I said to Neil, "How did that go?" And he said, "Well, when something's going big on Facebook, there's a little flame that comes up beside it, and you got a flame, Sarah." I was so thrilled. So, you know, I don't know the answer to that question, but Neil in the back will be the man to talk to. Okay.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. I feel like that's really inspiring. I feel like we're all now aflame in our own way. So it's actually my pleasure now to introduce Kate Condon-Moriarty, who's the marketer at Dunn Press. She has worked in marketing, sales, and editorial roles at Thomas Allen & Sons, Charles Bridge Publishing, and the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art.
So a big part of my job at Dundurn is creating digital marketing campaigns and working with our team to see them through from concept to execution. Over the past few years at Dundurn, we've put a real emphasis on producing and sharing quality content on our blog, in our newsletters, and across social media platforms. Mainly that's been Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We don't use the term content marketing at Dundurn very much at all, but as it turns out, it's essential to our marketing strategy. Content marketing is one of these buzzwords that doesn't cross our lips in publishing as often as it does in other industries, and that's because it comes as second nature to us. We're in the industry of marketing content, and the key here is to use the content that we have at hand and repurpose it to incentivize our dedicated community of book lovers. These are people who buy books, sometimes even from our website. So at Dundurn, we begin our marketing process in small groups, in these meetings that we call IMP meetings, and they're integrated marketing planning meetings. That sounds a lot more boring than it actually is. It's actually quite exciting. These are the opportunities to come up with the blue sky plans. And then we bring them back down to earth. We make them realistic, and then we move on to bring them to life. So one of the most essential tools for us is a project management software called Asana. I am the spokesperson for this software, so if anyone wants to talk to me about it, I would be happy to. We've been on it for about a year and a half, and it's super collaborative. It allows us to work together, see what other people are doing, and also discuss projects while we can see everything there on screen. For every content-based digital marketing campaign that we run, especially when it's title-specific, we use our authors as resources to provide content, and we encourage them to actively promote what we're doing online. Working with authors is essential to us, all of us in publishing, because authors are our lifeblood. They are our content creators, and we make sure to harness that potential to market their books as successfully as possible. So I'll present a few case studies today that show our content marketing strategy at work, and I believe they're pretty good examples. These campaigns all have ranged in level of success when it comes to ROI, but they're all successful in different ways. So our first case study is for the virtual launch of The Merit Birds, which is a teen fiction title on our spring 2015 list. So here are the rules for a virtual launch. On one day only, proof of purchase from an online retailer, in this case it was Amazon.ca, but it doesn't have to be, awards the choice of special content extras, bonus features like recipes, audio guides, music downloads, bonus chapters. And these pieces of content are all provided by the author and available through her website. This content incentive causes a spurt of activity on this one day and drives up demand for the title and increases discoverability on these major online retailers. So for the execution, we organized support on Dundurn's social pages. So that's Twitter, Facebook for us. And the author also promoted through her social media channels. And the most important part was she did a great job of encouraging her friends and family to share the virtual launch and to buy the book on that day if they had not already. We also worked with our key influencers on this project. So we brought in YA bloggers, and we ran a blog tour leading up to the virtual launch. And some of the biggest bloggers were posting about it on that day as well. So for the results, our Amazon.ca initial order doubled when we told them about this event. And the book was listed at number 3 in the teen category on that day, right next to The Hunger Games, which was fairly exciting for us. We also saw Amazon.com merchandising pick up in the following weeks, and it was selected as an Amazon.ca hot new release. There were also very low returns overall for this title, and our US sales were the strongest in the category for 2015. This was also a big day for our own website traffic, even though we weren't directing to our website. And 74% of the website users on that day were new visitors. The Merit Birds page also saw 208 page views on that day, which is more than a teen fiction book would see. We even took the opportunity to use this content that we had on hand and bring it to independent booksellers to show them some love and also drive some sales in those markets as well. So after the bookseller mailing, we also saw reorders from every store that we sent it to. Second case study is for the BOM Girls dating profiles that we ran on Twitter. So we used this to promote this nonfiction title about women who were working in factories in Scarborough making bombs during World War II. This idea was actually brought to us by our marketing intern in the summer, this last summer. So this is an important side note. Interns are often the most voracious readers and the ones that are most willing to dig into the content and do this work because they're inspired by the books that we're publishing, and that's why they want to work with us. She thought it would be a fun idea to promote the young women at the center of the book, often they were single, through these dating profiles, a lot like Tinder or OkCupid, Match.com, that's even still a thing. So for the execution, we created the Twitter graphics. We posted the rotating cards for a few weeks, and then later on for a few months, always linking back to the book's website. So this campaign ran 2 months post-publication, and the B&C sales remained steady at 750% higher than the following months. But that is skewed, of course, by things like publicity and advertising, merchandising that was also going on at the same time. So I think the most relevant stat here is that the website traffic remained steady as well. We had 1,600 sessions over the course of the campaign, and social referral accounted for 1,300 of those sessions. This is slightly more than the metrics for the first 6 weeks that the book was in market, so clearly we have longevity here. And the third case study I have is our Border City Blues cocktail graphic. So this is a graphic that we used to launch the second book in the Border City Blues series, Maiden Lane. The idea was inspired by one of these blue sky ideas to partner with local prohibition-themed bars. And this became unwieldy very quickly, as I'm sure you can imagine. So instead, we just created this signature cocktail card. The cocktail we named Here's Mud in Your Eye, and to be honest, it's just an old-fashioned with Canadian whiskey. So for the execution, we collaborated with a bartender for the recipe, fairly simple. And then we created this Twitter card and the Pinterest graphic, and we promoted them on publication day. So one new release tweet made 2,000 impressions, which doesn't seem like that much, but at the time it is 6 times more than we get for a generic new release tweet. We also saw over 30 engagements for this tweet. So again, that's a lot more than if we just post a simple Twitter card with a picture of the book, maybe a pull quote, and a link to the book's webpage. And I'm going to move briefly away from these title-specific campaigns because I also want to highlight another element of our online branding strategy. So we recently realized that posts about life at Dundurn or life in publishing were performing way better than anything else that we were putting online. So We've made it our mandate to put some more effort into these posts, make them more beautiful, and of course, try to link them back to titles or events, or in this case, launching a new season. So this infographic was born out of a particularly, let's call it, challenging catalog season with an unmentionable number of edits at the final stage. And as soon as I put the final version to bed, like I sent it to the printer, I received an unrelated prompt on Asana to create a quarterly infographic. And I joked with my colleague, Sarah, who is our marketing designer, wouldn't this be fun if we just turned our catalog into an infographic? And she was actually all over it. And we actually came up with the idea to compare the number of titles in our winter season to the number of coffees that it required for us to pull it off. So the results for this were great as well. So we promoted this on Twitter mainly, also on Instagram and Facebook. And the initial post on Twitter made 2,500 impressions with 62 engagements. These all linked back to our catalog and launched our winter season online fairly effectively. This is way higher than the engagements we get from simply linking to our catalog and telling people to check out our new titles. So all of these campaigns led to more followers on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, which, as Sarah has also mentioned, leads to increased website traffic, more newsletter signups, and eventually consumer sales. Even though the percentage of people who buy from social media is small, the larger the volume of followers, the more actual people come in. So the ultimate goal for us has been to increase followers, increase referrals to our website, and increase conversions. And it seems to be working. In the past year, we've grown Twitter 20%, Facebook 40%, and Instagram by 150%. This growth is mirrored in the 20% overall growth of our monthly website users. In addition to content, we do include incentives in our newsletters and on social media. For example, the new Canadian Garden promo and the free shipping option for orders over $40. And we always use calls to action to direct back to our point of sale, to keep website users on the upswing, and sell more books, because, of course, that's what we're here to do. So that's all for me. Thank you. Don't forget to keep in touch and see what we're up to next year.
Thanks for that presentation. I saw a really quick mention about Pinterest, and I was wondering what successes you've had and how it differs from other, I guess, media, just because, the audience.
I think that this was the only pin, this and the catalog pin were the only ones that have been truly successful for us recently, I'll be honest. And that, I think, has to do with who we are and what kind of books that we're publishing. A lot of gifty publishers are doing really well on Pinterest. So we're right now trying to reorganize our strategy around Pinterest, maybe make it more involved in the publishing industry, because that seems to be what everyone's interested in. We have a lot of political science and military history and those types of books. So we don't find that promoting those books on Pinterest is really working for us. So when we have the right book, we promote it, but we're not trying to build up that community in the same way that we're trying to build up the other platforms that I've mentioned. So I think it just depends on what kind of company you're working with.
Thanks. Yeah, that leads me to a question. Like, are there any social media platforms that you've actually abandoned or had to
No.
walk away from? No.
We haven't abandoned any, but we do pay more attention to the ones that are working for us.
Do you use Tumblr at all?
We don't.
You do you guys? Yeah? Okay. I was curious.
I think I overheard, I wasn't here for the presentation, about millennials, and that millennials are all about Tumblr. And our audience tends to be just a little bit older than that younger level of millennial that is most involved with Tumblr.
Right. On that point, I also had a question about, and like you sort of rely a lot on your authors to help promote these campaigns. Do you ever have any authors that are sort of social media illiterate that you have to sort of coach through it at all? I don't know if you've had to deal with that as well. I don't. Some of us have in the past. So.
Yeah, but we try to make sure to encourage authors as much as possible and really show them what can happen when you're successful online. But I do think that there's this real fear, especially when you're starting from scratch and you're seeing how people are doing it successfully, and there's a fear that you'll never be that good. I think that's what basically everything that we do, right?
I also think it's important not to push a writer who is really reluctant to try to, because you can tell somebody who's just faking it, and that doesn't play well on the social networks. I mean, strangely, it took us forever to get Ian Hamilton to try to get with his Facebook page. But when he finally did, which is years, it's working. But to do it in anything other than I get it and I want to do it kind of way, I think defeats your purposes on social networks.
Yeah.
We have an author newsletter or a timeline that we send out to them with tips about social media. And then our publicists will work with authors one-on-one. But it really depends on the author, and it does depend on the book, too.
Awesome. Well, do either of you have any sort of final thoughts you want to share with people and a little takeaway so that we can all be aflame like your little Facebook
Oh,
post?
it's so much fun to get the flame.
I know, the flame. It's those little satisfactions. I know it's interesting that you were saying that it is really about the sales, but you can't help but be excited when you get those followers and you know your tweet is retweeted.
Well, I became obsessed with Anansi's Facebook numbers, and I've dropped it now because I also think trying to increase followers and traffic kind of wantonly is silly. And what was interesting about the Ian Hamilton sampling was that we got such a high return from such a small group of people. And so actually just trying to go out there to increase your followers. HarperCollins did it, it seemed to me, about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, where they gave people mugs. I was so mad. You know, sign up for Facebook and you get a mug. I thought, how many mugs did they have to produce to do this? And their following, you know, their followers were huge at the end of this campaign. But then I thought, really, to what end? Like, they gave away a lot of mugs, and so what? But that's just me being bitter, probably.
No, I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think Dan Meisner from Spark had this great line that he'd rather be vital than viral.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a really good mantra to have in mind. That, yeah, just having this like wide swath of followers is like all well and good, but if they're not actually engaging and if they're not actually going to the site and buying the books, then yeah, that's
So that's why sort of understanding who your audience might be for certain tranches of your books is probably more beneficial than just trying to get anybody. Sort of like dating.
It's true. And do you find that the email newsletter audience is more engaged than the social audience?
Yeah.
I find that as well.
That's one step up, right, from the social audience. And I also think it's important to go through your, especially your Twitter followers, and remove all those bots, because they look good in numbers, but you're not really getting an accurate read on how you're doing and who's engaging with you and who's seeing your content.
Right. Excellent. So don't go and buy a bunch of followers. I don't know if people
Don't do it.
don't do it. Not worth it.
Actually, I know you said that you're marketing primarily to parents, which I understand for sure for the picture books. But I'm wondering how that differs when it comes to teen novels. Like, I'm guessing there's a little bit more engagement from the actual.
I think this is, you know, you're hitting on something that we're just really trying to develop now. You know, Groundwood's primary category has been picture book, and the YA category is smaller for us, but I was just talking to Sheila before she went to Italy about some books that we should consider. And we've just now got, for example, Lisa Moore's Flannery in the YA section, so we are pushing that in many different ways that I don't even know what we're doing right now. I have to ask these guys. But yeah, I think that for sure it's always been of interest to me that we would get more young people coming onto the Groundwood site to engage with us and try to get kids of a certain age interested in following us. But I don't think we're even close to being there yet. So that would be like call me in a few more, or these guys in a few more years, and we'll see where we're at. Okay. But primarily, I mean, what we do understand about our Groundwood audience is that it's largely institutional. It's largely educators and librarians. So let's say the next tranche will be trying to get teenagers to come. We need one of those kinds of books. You know, it really ultimately comes down to your content. And if you get the next, you know, what's the Katniss books, those ones?
Oh, yeah,
we-
the Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games. If we can get one of those, then I guess we would get like a tsunami of
Oh,
young
yeah.
women coming to our site.
Yeah, bow and arrow giveaway.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here, and thanks, Kate and Sarah, for speaking.
Thank you.